This podcast serves Middle Tennessee every weekday morning, and it's made possible by member support. Learn how you can make a difference at WPLN.org/support.
This is the Nashvillager Podcast. It's July 24th, 2025. On this day in 1935, a massive heat wave hit its peak, causing deadly conditions in multiple states. It was 109 degrees in Chicago, not heat index, actual temperature. And that was just one part of a multi-year phenomenon of incredibly hot summers across much of the U.S. That weather, combined with short-sighted agricultural practices, created the so-called Dust Bowl. Prairie land that had once been covered in native grasses had been converted to massive farming operations. And when the weather turned so hot and dry that farmland became bare and dusty, it wasn't able to sustain the kinds of crops farmers were trying to grow. It meant the land wasn't able to sustain the farmers either. I'm Nina Cardona, and this is your daily digest of what's happening around Middle Tennessee with historical context from Nashville Public Radio, WPLN News. Tennessee farmers used to have their own bad habits that led to severe problems. Go visit Natchez Trace State Park, and you'll see dramatic erosion that happened when the soil there became severely weakened. Generations later, those gullies are covered in green and make for a really interesting view on a hike. But that's not the shape the land used to be. The land was flat when it was farmed. Now it's cut through by impassable crevasses. It does serve a purpose, though. The incredible change to that piece of West Tennessee landscape is a reminder that human activity can have a major impact on nature, even if we're not trying to change anything. Mother Nature doesn't care about our intention. The "I didn't mean to" defense doesn't change the laws of physics. If we use the land or the water or the air for our own purposes without thinking of the ripple effects, those effects will still happen anyway. That's what environmentalists have been trying to tell us about the Tennessee Valley Authority's continued use of fossil fuels, about the impact of plastic packaging that we tear off of consumer goods and throw in the trash, about the ways that we're affecting the overall global temperature and climate. And on a very local level, there's another example at play right now. The Duck River winds its way through much of southern Middle Tennessee. It's not a deep river, but it's an important one. It's home to a dizzying number of small creatures, and it's where a lot of mid-state communities get their drinking water. I've talked about it on this podcast before. As you might remember, Governor Bill Lee talked a lot about the duck in this year's State of the State address, promising to allocate $100 million to finding a way forward that lets towns and counties draw the water they need and move forward with industrial development without doing harm to the fragile and important ecosystem. But the governor can only suggest allocations. The General Assembly gets the final say. They cut a big chunk out, ultimately approving just $65 million for the river. The debate over that spending mirrored actions we've seen over the years, with folks from some counties strongly emphasizing the importance of conservation, while others don't want any hurdles in the way of drawing water. Of course, the state government isn't the only entity that gets to make decisions about the waterway, and that's what some folks who want to dam the duck are counting on. Back in the 1970s, the federal government started building a dam near Columbia. It would have included a hydroelectric power plant. The project would have created a lake with all sorts of fishing and boating opportunities, like folks around so many other Tennessee reservoirs like Percy Priest or Old Hickory Lakes are able to enjoy. But while the work continued, concerns started to grow about how species native to the river would be affected, like freshwater mussels. In 1983, after roughly a decade of work, construction was put on pause, and ultimately in the 90s, the project was shut down altogether. Much of what had been built was demolished. Now, a group called Columbia Dam Now wants the federal government to consider restarting that dam project. They've solicited help from two members of the state's congressional delegation, Andy Ogles and Chuck Fleischman. They're asking for a fast-track feasibility study, and the sales pitch on their website emphasizes the tourist dollars that a lake might bring to Maury County. They call it a central part of their vision for Columbia's future. The Duck River Conservancy strongly disagrees. At its latest meeting, the environmental watchdog group's board of directors voted to formally oppose a Columbia dam. They point to the drought conditions that have been seen all along the river in recent years. They say creating a reservoir in one community would exacerbate those problems for other towns along the river. What's more, lower water levels would mean already problematic wastewater being dumped into the duct would make up a greater concentration of what's, actually making up the river's water. And that would cause an even greater risk to the health of the many species that live there and the cleanliness of the water supply for the utilities that draw from it. We are lucky in Tennessee that the push to privatize federal lands isn't much of a factor the way it is in the western states. We don't have vast tracts of Bureau of Land Management property that folks in D.C. are currently fighting to control. But we do have smaller projects like this that could absolutely turn on the political whims of Congress right now. And while political opinion can turn on a dime, nature moves more slowly. The wrong decision made to capitalize on a partisan moment could affect the health of our communities and the fragile balance of an important river habitat for generations well beyond our own. In just a few minutes, we're heading to the Redneck Rumble. That's coming up after the newscast.
We know that local government isn't the only part of your life.
Like the mayor, I know that city government isn't the only thing you're concerned with.
We are still struggling to find affordable housing.
They're taking over this bus stop.
That's one of the unique challenges with my business.
I'm WPLN's Metro reporter Cynthia Abrams. I'm working to break down topics like transit, housing, and local government to make sure that when you are thinking about Metro, you're getting the full story. Follow my latest stories at WPLN.org.
Here's the latest from WPLN News. Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the man wrongfully deported to El Salvador in March, will be released. A federal judge in Nashville has officially approved his release after more than a month of court arguments. The 29-year-old has been in custody for the past 5 months, first by an El Salvadoran prison, and then by the United States after the Supreme Court ordered the Trump administration to bring him back. Garcia now faces human smuggling charges in Tennessee, stemming from a 2022 traffic stop in the state. 2 federal judges in Nashville have given the green light for Abrego Garcia to be released before trial, but there are still questions whether ICE will deport Abrego Garcia to a third country during that time. A Maryland judge has ruled that ICE has to give 72 hours notice before they can deport him a second time. This year, Tennessee lawmakers made it a felony for any local official to support or vote in favor of so-called sanctuary city laws. These are policies that limit cooperation between local government and federal immigration enforcement, and they've been highly politicized in recent years. The ACLU of Tennessee has since challenged the law in court. WPLN's Metro reporter Cynthia Abrams unpacks the reasons why.
Tennessee has banned sanctuary cities since 2019. But Republican lawmakers, like House Majority Leader William Lamberth, say that law didn't have any teeth to it. So they passed a new one. Now, any elected officials who vote in favor of such policies can be removed from office and charged with a felony.
Easiest crime in the world to avoid, just don't vote in favor of sanctuary cities.
But the criminalization of the vote is exactly what the ACLU takes issue with. Legal Director Stella Yarbrough says it's a First Amendment violation.
When you criminalize the vote based on its content, that is viewpoint discrimination. And the government is saying, this viewpoint is okay, this viewpoint is not okay. And that is something that the First Amendment just doesn't tolerate.
The lawsuit is filed on behalf of 7 Nashville Metro Council members. It also argues the Constitution protects legislators and their actions while they are governing. Yarbrough says there aren't many laws like it. She says it, quote, skews authoritarian.
The way local legislators sometimes have to operate, or people who are even in minority parties have to operate, is to vote for things that they know that they're not going to be able to pass. But that's kind of dissent.
The ACLU is waiting on a state response. A 3-judge panel will hear the case. Cynthia Abrams, WPLN News.
Earlier this year, the Department of Homeland Security included Nashville on a list of sanctuary jurisdictions. That's despite the fact that Nashville cannot adopt such policies. Another city on that list, Louisville, changed its process for holding immigrants in jails this week in hopes of getting off the list. Lebanon-based Cracker Barrel is once again being accused of racial discrimination. This time the criticism is on behalf of white men. The conservative legal group America's First Legal takes issue with the restaurant's statement on its webpage that the company is, quote, committed to making progress through attracting, selecting, developing, and retaining, quote, high-performing talent with diverse backgrounds, experiences, and perspectives. In the past, Cracker Barrel was the center of multiple controversies related to racial discrimination. In the early 2000s, the company was sued by more than 40 employees and customers across 16 states. The lawsuit exposed the restaurant's systemic practices of paying black workers less than their white employees, giving the black workers less favorable jobs, and consistent racist slurs. It also came to light that Cracker Barrel turned black customers away, forced black customers to sit in segregated sections of the restaurant, and allowed white staff members to refuse to serve black customers. The lawsuit ended in a more than $8 million settlement. The new complaint argues that the restaurant chain is now violating the Tennessee Human Rights Act and the Federal Civil Rights Act, and it asks for an investigation. It accuses Cracker Barrel of openly discriminating against heterosexual white and male employees in favor of diverse employees. A new Tennessee law lets physicians refuse to provide care that violates their own ethical standards. One East Tennessee woman who is not married says her doctor cited that law while refusing to provide prenatal care. The Tennessean reports the woman spoke out against the Medical Ethics Defense Act during a recent town hall meeting in Jonesboro. She says she's traveling to Virginia for care, but that she's worried about what might happen if she goes into labor in Tennessee. Parents of kids with disabilities are wondering how a shrinking U.S. Department of Education will impact them. One group helping those families just got a federal grant from the department. WPLN's Camelia Burris has more.
A Tennessee nonprofit, TN Step, has been helping parents navigate special education for 35 years. Some of this help involves offering reassurance amid changing educational policies.
There's so much panic, and so many of our calls right now are parents saying, we're hearing special education may go away, like is TN Step going to go away? And even on the scariest of days or the most uncertain days, we were business as usual.
That's Stephanie Willis, the organization's director. She says this year there was a delay getting their 5-year federal grant renewed. But now that they have the money, they can continue helping families understand their disability rights, assisting kids transition into adulthood, and even empowering parents to question schools about their policies. For example, a state report found that schools were not documenting times that they sent kids home for behavioral issues. Willis tells parents to push back on this. She says that most of her team either has a child with a disability or has one themselves, so they understand the challenges facing these families. Camelia Burris, WPLN News.
Doctor's notes will no longer be accepted at Lawrence County schools. If your child is sick, they'll simply be marked absent with no excuse noted. School district officials say this is to address the chronic low attendance rate. WSMV reports that last year, on average, 14 kids out of 100 were out of class for more than 10% of the school year. By a margin of just one vote, the Wilson County Commission voted against rezoning to allow an industrial development in the Gladeville area. Developers had promised to include much-needed flood mitigation measures in their project, but ultimately the argument against increased traffic won the day. Indie rock royalty showed up to the WNXP studio to support public radio and make news last night. Hayley Williams, lead singer of the worldwide phenomenon Paramore, dropped off a CD with a new song for the station to debut. Written in Sharpie, Williams wrote, quote, "Long live public radio. Thanks for keeping me company." Jason Moon Wilkins debuted it live on air.
A worldwide debut that you cannot hear anywhere else but right here on this public radio station, Hayley Williams with mirtazapine.
Williams shared WNXP's link to donate to public radio on her Instagram story, drawing contributions from around the country. Nashville Public Radio met its emergency fundraising goal by surpassing $400,000. You'll find more news anytime at WPLN.org. What is custom car culture? Well, This is Nashville's managing editor, Tasha A.F. Lemley, wanted to know. So she headed out to an event in Lebanon called the Redneck Rumble and asked around.
Custom car culture. What is that?
I have no idea.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go try to figure out.
Good luck.
I'm at the Redneck Rumble out in Lebanon. Here to figure out what in the world custom culture is. Custom car culture. What is that?
It's here. Okay, Redneck Rumble's a little bit different than most of your car shows because you have the full customs, the full-blown show cars, and the rat rods here. Everybody gets along. You have a millionaire parked next to a guy that's on a fixed income. Nobody cares. They don't care. It's a gathering of car people. John Grimm, we're from Mayfield, Kentucky, and we come no matter what. We just love Redneck Rumble.
And then this pink thing behind you, okay,
custom.
Has that been chopped? That's a new word I'm using.
Yeah, it's been chopped, the roof's lowered. I would call that one a lead sled.
And so you're saying there's different kinds of car culture. So you said full customs, and so I'm getting the sense that like a full custom is not restoring something to its original state.
Not at all. Not at all. Just completely, you might use the body and everything else is more modern. And then you also have street rods. Street rods are, in my opinion, the 30s and 40s cars that have been modernized. They've got, new drivetrains in them and where you can drive them every day, but they're still a 1930s, 40s car. And then you have the rat rods, which is more creative. You build and you add stuff to it that's unusual. Rat rods aren't supposed to be clean. They're supposed to be rough.
I mean, it's a little Mad Max, honestly, right?
Exactly. You can guess who is Square Barbie from looking across the parking lot.
Why square?
That particular year model truck is called a square body.
Got
body.
it.
She calls it Square Barbie. So y'all want to meet Candace?
Yeah, let's do it.
The truck and God built this journey because it wasn't supposed to be pink and teal. It wasn't supposed to be named Square Barbie. I wanted kids to want to come talk to me and not feel like stranger danger. I love getting more girls into the automotive world, so I'm kind of like on a mission.
Is Square Barbie a rat rod? What is she?
She's her own entity. She's her own thing. It makes you step out of your comfort zone and kind of question, like, so is it a hot rod? Is it a rat rod? Is it a mini truck? Like, what is it? And she's just different. And that's what I was going for.
What is your name?
My name is Cooley.
Okay, so Cooley, what are we looking at for radio people?
What do you want to look at? This whole row belongs
Well,
to
I
me?
like the idea that you were about to come to this Redneck Rumble.
Yeah.
And you went, I'm going to throw together one more thing.
Yeah,
And this is
exactly.
amazing. So what are we looking like?
This is you've seen the little coolers like that people ride around, the little electric coolers.
Yeah.
At car shows and whatnot. Well, this is my version of it. Yeah.
So you've got I know nothing about any of this. So these are my layman's terms for
I got you.
people maybe like me. So I'm a short person, but you've got a large wheel in the back that maybe comes up to my hip.
Yeah.
Then you've got a red, what is this called?
It's
Red
a radio
Rider.
flyer wagon.
Radio flyer wagon. So that the red part of that is connected
A lawnmower engine.
to a lawnmower engine.
And the front end is an old, it's like just a cheap four-wheeler, like little kids' four-wheeler.
This is amazing. So yeah, of course you're not surprised that other people love this. I mean, maybe I'm getting a little bit floofy about it, but it seems like you are taking really warm parts of childhood and
exactly.
you're bringing that into some really grown-up toys.
Yeah, exactly. It's actually a pretty expensive hobby. Some of these rat rods can get to be $70,000, $80,000, $100,000 rigs, and then you got a cooler cart that I've got about $30 in.
So Cooley, a word I heard recently that I didn't know what it meant and I still don't really know, is this custom culture?
It really is, yeah. Well, everybody's going to have a different definition of that, Custom to one person might be junk to somebody else, and custom to somebody else might mean they have to give big money for it.
can see photos of all the custom creations in this story on our website and hear more from car choppers in a full episode of This is Nashville, available in that show's podcast feed. We do this roundup of Nashville news every weekday. Please consider subscribing on your favorite podcasting app. And thanks so much to all of you who've left 5 stars, a thumbs up, or a review in your app of choice. Thanks as much to all of you who gave to help fill that $400,000 funding gap that the CPB clawback created in our budget. We had a phenomenal fund drive this week. We're so thankful to all of our listeners. We are still figuring out what all of the ripple effects will be, so continued support is incredibly important. And you can make a donation at WPLN.org anytime. And that's it for today. Thanks so much for listening. Let's make this day a good one, and we'll catch back up tomorrow.